This is the Black Creative Handbook with your host, Kassandra Lauren Gordon. And I'm here with
DZI. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is DZI. I am an artist from Baltimore, Maryland, born in PG County, but living in Baltimore, Maryland right now. And I'm so happy to be here with you, Kassandra. Thanks so much.
Baltimore. Okay. Every time when I talk to one of our American cousins, international people, I always try to figure out my American references where Baltimore is. And to me, Drew Hill is from Baltimore, right?
Yes, absolutely. Drew Hill, Cisco.
What you want, bouncing up and down. And then Little Mo, the singer, claims she's from Baltimore as well. And isn't The Wire in Baltimore?
Yep, The Wire is from Baltimore. Wire is made about Baltimore City. It is.
My reference for the there you go.
So that's great. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who haven't seen The Wire yet. If you haven't seen The Wire, go check it out. There's also been a recent movie about police in Baltimore City that just came out on Netflix or Hulu or something like that. So go check that out if you know what I'm talking about. Baltimore is a very dope city.
Yeah. See, my little American references. I haven't been to it, but one day just to see Drew Hill. Hopefully one
anytime.
day.
Yeah, anytime. He's
cool. So a part of this podcast is to help Black creatives all over the world, the global community, to get them from A to B. So sometimes people always say, yeah, like someone like Kanye West, you see his success, but you don't see always the journey unless you watch the documentary. So we are on the grind, we are making moves, and we are just showing the processes and the journey and just help people to get where they need to be, because being a creative is so hard. It's taking your ideas, your vision, which no one really probably sees, and take it into reality and actualize it. So it's not always someone's responsibility to get someone on board into your vision, but you just have to execute. So here we are. So before we get into DZI, what you actually do, we're trying to get to know you, get to know your subconsciousness, trying to get to know just who you are before we know you as the artist. So ask you random questions.
Yeah, let's go.
One of the questions is, okay. I was going to ask you what I always ask, but I'm gonna switch it up. Okay, cool.
Switch it up on me. Okay. I like a little switch up.
Yellow or blue? What color do you prefer?
Blue, for sure.
Okay. My next question, are you an Apple or are you an Android person?
I'm an Android person. I like the highest quality Androids though, so all iPhone users miss me with the jokes because my camera looks amazing. You can't tell from this camera because I'm on my laptop computer, but I definitely love Android. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, you're Android. Okay. All right then. So what is the first thing you do in the morning?
First thing I do in the morning is I stretch. I get out of bed and I stretch. Then, I like to go brush my teeth, wash my face, make a little breakfast. I love to cook, so I like being able to plan on my meals in the morning. I'm actually a really big morning person. I love the sort of tranquility that you get in the morning, the peacefulness of it all. I love the sun, so bright. I would say the morning time is my happy time, my happy place.
Okay, me and you're similar. Mornings. Okay, cool. I was going to ask you, who was the last person you text?
The last person I text, and do you mean the last person I texted or the last person I like to text in the day?
The last person you sent a message on your phone?
Last person I sent a message to my phone is probably my grandma, I think. Real connected with my grandma. She's a lovely woman who's made so much money in real estate, has so much wisdom about the world, and has traveled so much. So I love just tapping in with her to hear about her experiences, listen to her stories, and just see what's going on with her during that day.
Okay, that's so sweet. And it's Mother's Day in the US today as we're recording, so it's May. In the UK, Mother's Day is in March. Okay. So hopefully people will listen to it soon. Okay, so we talked about your morning. We talked about the last person you text. So what is the last thing you do? What is the last thing you do before you go to bed, usually?
To be honest with you, the last thing I do before I go to bed usually is my mixing or working on production for like songs. I get creative at night, so I like to like go back to my songs and kind of just like check what I did, check the mixes, do any recording that I want to do. And usually by the time I finish, I'm nice and tired, ready to go to sleep. So that's what I like to do at night.
So
Big creative energy at night.
I hear you. So how do you balance that being a creative person in the morning and at nighttime do creative stuff? Like when do you sleep?
Yeah, so lately I haven't actually been getting that much sleep. I also work in finance too. Like so yeah. So sleep has always been a kind of scarce resource, especially lately. But I've been better about kind of like setting constraints and limits on my time, and when I was younger, it was very difficult for me to do that. I could work till 6 a.m., wake up at 9. But as I get older, I've been learning how to like, just put more limits on myself. So I tell myself, be in bed by midnight, be in bed by 1. And lately that's been working out a lot better.
Understood. What is the last book you've read?
The last book that I read, I think, was Tuesdays with Morrie. It's a book that I read before. It's a really heartfelt book about mentorship, actually. And I believe it's a fictional book, but it won some awards, at least in the US it did. And yeah, I definitely recommend it. Very heartfelt. If you like to read, if you like warm stories, check it out. Tuesdays with Morrie.
Okay. I'm gonna check that out. And ask people, what advice would you give to your 12-year-old self?
The advice I would give to my 12-year-old self would be to stop being so afraid. For me, I started to like really learn some of like my creative interests around that time. And for me, because it was such uncharted territory, there's so much uncertainty about like my day-to-day actions, about how I would be in the future, what the future would look like, etc. And I would tell myself just to stop worrying so much, just have fun, live life. Things are gonna work out well.
Okay. I like those advice. That's my advice. Oh, so the last one, do you prefer toast or cereal?
I'm a cereal guy for sure. For sure.
And what type of cereal?
Lately I've been eating, it's gonna make me sound kind of like an old man, but lately I've been eating Honey Nut Cheerios with like this extra honey, and it's been really good in the morning. The thing about cereal for me that I love is it's very quick. I like things that are efficient and fast because I got a lot of things going on, right? So I like how cereal, it takes maybe like 2 minutes to make, and there's breakfast. So
Understood. So now we've got to know a bit about you, a bit the honey nut cereals and all that kind of stuff. How do we get to know you as the person, the creative person? So how would you introduce yourself? How would you say who you are and what you do and why you love doing it?
Yeah, I would say I'm an artist at heart, meaning that I'm creative. Like if you want to know something about me, I think that like my creative talents and passions make up a lot of my identity. And since I was young, when I was a baby, I remember maybe 3 years old. I remember my dad playing Bob Marley, jamming, and I remember me like loving it. Like, and I didn't know who the artist was. I didn't really even know what music really meant to me at that time, but I just knew that I loved this like particular sound. And I remember my father getting me like a really tiny acoustic guitar. And as a destructive little boy, I ended up breaking it. But I just remember having all of these like creative moments as a kid and exposure to creative people and artists. And I remember just like feeling an alignment with it, like feeling close to it. And then my dad used to have a little classical guitar laying around the house that he never played, right? And I remember him breaking it out every now and then to play a redemption song by Bob Marley. And the way he would play it, it'd be he'd play it like on one string with his thumb, which is not really how you play guitar. So, and I remember just like listening to it and being like, this is like kind of cool. And then eventually I started sneaking it away, trying to figure out like, can I learn a couple songs or something like that on the guitar. He found it. I got in trouble. And then I remember from there, like friends in high school, us getting together to like produce music for the first time, right? I had never done it before. And it was such an amazing experience, the fact that we could now like take some of these ideas that were going on in our head and like record them, you know what I mean? So now it's going on from our head to something that we can actually listen to and enjoy. And that like was transformative for me. I was like, oh, I want to do this all the time. And so, but at the time, you know, it was still a little bit of a landscape that was unfamiliar to me. So, and what was more familiar was playing guitar. So I really stuck with guitar up until I would say the last like 4 years where I've heavily got into production and created this whole brand, DZI, which comes from a suggestion from my father. My initials are D and Z. So he was like, why don't you call yourself Dizzy? And I was like, nah, that seems kind of lame, Dad. I don't think, you know, when your parents give you a suggestion and you're like, no. But later on, I kind of thought about it and I was like, so one of my favorite artists is Dizzy Gillespie. And I was like, there's a lot of alignment there. So after the whole George Floyd situation, I decided that I wanted to make music that was not rock and roll and guitar centered. I wanted to focus on music that could connect with my community like more deeply. And so I was like, you know, I'm gonna produce some rap. I'm gonna have all my friends on the EP, and they're gonna all say how they're feeling about this situation with George Floyd in the country. And that was my first foray into rap and producing. And then from there, it just kind of took off.
Okay. So there's a lot to unpack there with your creativity from your father, playing from Bob Marley, and how you just started producing. But you just glance over it. So we just need to deconstruct it a little bit. So you're talking about probably in high school or middle school, you started making beats. Is it beats? Is that all right? So how did a teenager, just start making beats? Like what type of music? What were your influences? How did you start doing it?
Yeah, so people in my school, people started realizing that like I was the music guy. You know, I would like post up with my little acoustic guitar in the middle of the lobby where everybody is at 7:25 in the morning, 7:25 a.m. And I'm like playing songs, you know, probably no one else wants to hear at the time. But, you know, I was that interested and that passionate about it that I wanted to have my guitar everywhere I went, you know what I mean, in all my classes, in the hallways. So people started like kind of recognizing me. I was like, that's the guy who like plays music. So we had some upperclassmen at the time. I was a sophomore, upperclassman, my friend Servando. He hit me up one day and he was just like, hey man, like you want to like jam or something, play some music? And I was like, yeah, let's get together. We got together and like I'm super like excited because it's an upperclassman. I'm like a sophomore at the time in high school. You know, he's at the end of his junior year. I'm like, this is so cool. I get to hang out with the older kids, and they're on GarageBand. And I never, you know, I'm an Android guy, so I never had messed around with Apple products before. It's my first time seeing something like GarageBand. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, oh, we're gonna take the guitar thing that you just did and we're gonna make it into a beat. And I'm like, well, how the fuck do you do that? Like teach me about this. Like, so, you know, well, this is how you record, and this is how you create a loop, and this is how you know, do some of the like sort of fundamental actions of creating a beat, right? And you know, I'm sitting there and I'm just like blown away by it, the fact that we were able to like take what I did, but also enhance it and make an entire song in maybe like an hour using this technology, right? And I just thought it was so incredible. I was smitten by it. And you know, also being a kid, you know, and you know, experimenting with like weed and everything like that, and like you know, things that teenagers do. It was just I felt like my mind was like opening up and like being transformed by like this whole process that I didn't know much about. And the kind of person I am is like when I get interested in something but I don't know about it, I immerse myself into it. I dive into it. So then I started hitting him up all the time. Hey, man, can we make a beat? Can we make a beat? Must have got quite annoying after a little bit, but we became very close friends actually. And you know, he's actually responsible for the one who gave me the technology. He to make beats when I first started. He actually gave me his license to use like the product. And I couldn't afford it, and my parents couldn't afford it, so there would be no way that I would have been able to use it without his help at that time. So I credit him for being very like sort of fundamental to my progress when it comes to being a producer.
Okay, we all have to start somewhere. Someone always have to put someone on. You can't just do things by yourself. No man is an island. So thank you for being so honest about your humble starts. Yeah. So how does one progress? So okay, someone gave you a license. How do you get better? What are the techniques to learning how to make beats?
Yeah, honestly, I think I was quite bad at it to begin with. It was a lot of just kind of experimentation and like just pulling up the software, just trying new things, right? Until I would say until about 2 to 3 years ago, where I don't know if you guys remember, I was telling you about the George Floyd project that I had made, and that's my first real like product that I produced myself, right? And I had a friend reach out to me and say, "You need to meet this guy named K1. He's a local producer in the area. I feel like you guys have a lot in common. He also has a guitar background like you, but he's a producer, and you guys have a very similar background. I think there's an alignment there." And him and I met a couple summers ago, and that was when I like my progress, my abilities really like exponentially grew, because he would allow me to come over to his place, and I would like try new things. But then I also had a sounding board, right? A person who would be like, I like what you did there, but try this instead. Or I noticed you didn't know this particular technique, right? When it comes to beats are often made using loops, right? And then you extend the loops and you change the loops in order to create a beat eventually. And at that time, I didn't even really know how to like create one loop properly. So it was like his guidance and sort of like, I would say even mentorship throughout those summers that really like kickstarted my ability to produce. And not even just to produce, but also allowed me to form my identity musically, right? Like to know who I am, what kind of sounds I like, and why I like those sounds, right? Just a quick blurb about that. It's funny because him and I were talking a couple weeks ago, and I was like, "Who's your main influence? Like, who started you with rap and everything like that? Like, the sounds that you really like?" And he's like, "NWA," and his sound is very like gritty and kind of like dark, right? And then he asked me same thing. He's like, "What's the sound that really started you to like rap?" And I was like, "I think it was Tribe Called Quest, like Low End Theory, Benita Applebaum." And my sound is like very jazzy and kind of like light and airy at times, right? So we just thought it was very funny that how our influences have really made a huge impact on our sound to this day.
Okay, so what type of software? So me, I just hear music. I don't know the technical stuff, but some of our listeners are sound people. So what technical, like what software do you use? Is there any free software? Is it free software? Is it any license? Like what type of software?
Yeah, it's a license. It's called Ableton. I like Ableton. But people use all kinds of software. People use Logic
And stuff like that.
Pro Tools, yeah. Personally, I love Ableton just because like that's what I started out using, and it just feels familiar to me and comfortable. But every producer should know how to use all the different software involved when it comes to production, just in case you're in a studio that uses a different type than you're used to. But for me, I personally like Ableton, but I also use all sorts of other plugins and programs to achieve certain sounds, to achieve certain qualities.
Okay, you got to know them all. You got to know them all. All right, and you say that you rap as well. I didn't know about the rapping bit.
I rap as well. So I've always been a poet. I've always been a writer. I've always been lyrically inclined to write. I used to fill up journals, composition notebooks filled with lyrics and poems. And when I was starting out in high school, I was rapping as well. But like I really got into my band right after high school, or maybe like junior to senior year and onward. So I was focusing more on like writing rock music and singing and stuff like that. And I kind of had tabled the poetry and the rap to an extent. And then, as the George Floyd thing happened again, I was like, I really like miss rapping. I miss being able to be able to connect with people through this style of art. With singing, generally, it's you say less when you sing.
What?
Right?
Explain that.
Well, in terms of just like the sheer amount of words that you say, maybe not in terms of the impact of the words, but in terms of like the amount of what you say, whereas rap, you're like almost talking just to someone, right? So I like the ability that I could like be a little bit more concise with my thoughts with rap versus singing. Like I could really say the things I wanted to say with rap versus with singing, I had to figure out a way to be a little bit more creative and say it with less words, and focus more on the emotion and like sort of like quality of my voice. And with rap, you still focus on the emotion, you still focus on your quality of voice, but you have more words to use.
More tools. Okay. Right. So I think that we got a lot of comment of being a very multi-passionate person and doing different things. So how do you balance it out? What do you give more attention to in your creative practice?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think right now I give a lot more attention to production and beat making. Rapping always came very naturally to me. Even when I was younger, and I didn't really have to try too hard. And my friends would be like, "Oh, that's pretty cool. Like, I like what you said there. I like how you said it." So, and maybe it's a Black thing too. I don't know. Like, maybe it's just like being immersed in Black culture. Like people say with rapping, like it's always been there for Black people. Even before the genre was actually made, you would hear people in gospel almost like have a rap style like verse or a rap
Mm.
style chorus sometimes. You know what I mean? So the saying when it comes to Black culture is that rapping has always been there, right? But we just
Mm.
made it into like a formal art form. So I think maybe a little bit of that has had rubbed off on me, and but production is a totally different beast. All the different things that you need to learn about it to be good at production. It takes a lot more effort for me personally. So I think I've like put more effort there. But with being friends with someone like K1, who's a great artist, definitely check out K1. 1-800 call K1 on all platforms. He's very into artist development, right? So vocal lessons, exercising, all these different like actions that you can take to develop your voice, to develop yourself as a rapper, right? And that's something that I've been like starting to dive more into. So that's just to say that I have a suspicion that soon there's going to be a lot more effort devoted to that artist development piece, focusing more on my style of rap versus my style of production.
Understood. Understood. Okay. Okay. I'm just trying to understand for the audience of like the journey, because you also like you obviously it seems like your collaborations or the people who you hang around with helps to elevate to the next step from where you are. So where are you taking the next step then with your creative journey? How are you elevating?
Yeah. So I came up with the EP called Heat Rock. It's my first official like rap EP where I'm rapping on all the songs, right? And that was my first step, right? In terms of my first real step in terms of journeying out into this industry. And my next step is to take it nationally and to take it internationally. I'm a big fan of UK drill. That's like a big piece of my.
How? I don't understand. You guys can understand UK drill. Can you understand the accents?
No one. See, that's like that's the big complaint from Americans about UK drill is, oh, I can't understand what they're saying. I can't understand the accent, right? But I kind of think that like that makes us a little bit like, I don't want to say lame, but like if we can't understand the lingo, then that's not their fault. That's kind of like your fault. So like I watch things like Top Boy, like different like.
Sometimes America, oh yeah, I love Top Boy. Like that's the only way, the representation of all of bloody like
Black
Britain.
Americans, sometimes that's all we have, and it's like almost
You
like
have the internet, you have YouTube. There's so much more than Top Boy, but I see what you said.
it's almost like somebody from the UK like watching The Wire to learn about Baltimore. It's like
No, fair enough.
you know.
Fair enough. But there's so much shows what we watch compared to
And I can't wait to get some suggestions because I'd love to like know what they are. But for me as an American, we watch Netflix and Hulu, and it's not like so much that I find that will like pique my interest other than like the Great British Bake Off. I think that's cool.
Wow. Okay.
But something like Top Boy was like very like I could relate to it in a way. You know what I mean? It was like Black men like surviving in the streets, doing certain things that they probably shouldn't be doing, right? But for survival's purposes, and like for me as a Black man in America, especially living in Baltimore, right? Like it's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense to me. This is something like I feel a cultural connection to now, right? And like and I feel like as if like I got a little bit of a window into like the lingo, the language, the slang. And that helped me when I was listening to UK drill because I was like, oh, that's what they mean when they say this, you know what I mean? Whereas like other Americans who hadn't even had that little bit of exposure had no sort of basis for what they're saying, right? And then all of a sudden it's like that music is whack because I don't know what they're talking about. But for me, like even when I didn't know what they were talking about, like the rhythms involved and the bass and the accents, like that all sounds so cool to me, and like the way it flows and the way people dance to it and the connection that people in the UK have with the music is like, that's really insightful and like special to me. When I when I was watching Top Boy, it was like really cool because like all of the club scenes, it's UK drill. Like, you know what I mean? It's like I expected to hear like other kinds of music too, but like no, like the black scene in that show at least, it was like UK drill for all of it.
No, but I hear some reggae, I hear some dancehall, a bit of Afrobeat. You know, it's a multicultural type of thing. You know, in the UK, very heavily influenced by the Caribbean and Jamaican culture and stuff like that. So, yeah,
exactly. And I think for me, it was a testament of like, oh wow, this music has really like become influential. Not to say that that's all people from the UK listen to, of course, you know, but it like really struck me about how influential the music was. Because you know, for America, you hear like a couple songs that are drill, and it had the UK drill influence, but you hear kind of sprinkled in here and there. But it was like really amazing for me to hear it so much in the show, and I was like, wow, this is like really cool. So I started wanting to learn about the mechanics of like what makes a UK drill song a UK drill song. And there's certain things that you need to know as a producer to be able to produce that kind of music. You cannot come at it the same way. You're not going to be able to make the song if you try to do it the same way that you would do maybe even an American drill song. You know what I mean? It's not going to sound the same. And it definitely won't sound the same if you try to approach it as a traditional like American hip hop song. So that was like a really cool journey for me because it was like getting into the different like techniques that I need to know as a producer to be able to produce certain kinds of music. Right?
Okay, that's understandable. That is so understandable. Well, thank you for sharing the appreciation for UK culture and, you know, global, isn't it? We're all global, so that's really helpful. I just got sidetracked about like Top Boy. I love Top Boy. I'm not hating on Top Boy. I do like Top Boy. I'm just trying to think of any other references. I think Top Boy is one of the biggest exports, I guess, of Black culture, I guess, it's one of the biggest exports. Can't think. You know what? Because I'm so on the grind all the time, I don't watch too much TV.
Watch too much TV. Yeah.
I watch. I'm not gonna lie to you. I watch sort of YouTube stuff.
Me too.
So, what is a popping UK Black culture channel? Chucky Online or Trend Central. So you want to know a lot about Black UK culture and how what people are thinking, those are the type of things. But I'm just trying to think of a proper formatted Netflix show. I do not know. I don't really know.
And one of the cool things that I thought about Top Boy, other than like the violence and drug dealing and all that stuff, was some of the issues that it focused on in the UK that as a Black American, like we don't experience as much. Like one of the issues that I thought was really interesting was like the issue of like immigration especially for Black women and how they're like unjustly targeted compared to like white folks when it comes to the immigration status and being deported. And like usually Black women in America, unless they're African or something, they are born here in this country. So we don't have a lot of deportation and immigration issues when it comes to Black women or Black people in the country. And that was like a key difference that I would have never known.
Oh, really? That's interesting that you say that. I was just reflecting when I was going from ages ago when I went from Seattle. I can't remember. I think I was crossing the border on Amtrak, the train.
Amtrak,
the US and the Canada border, and they were just. I was like, oh God, I'm gonna, because obviously I'm Black, so. But they just went to all of the Hispanic or community, like asking them, "Do you speak English? Do you speak English? Do you speak English?" And I'm like, I'm the one, like, not. Say again, sorry.
Wait, you were worried?
I was worried because I'm like, even though I've got my papers and stuff, I'm like, do I have to come? Because they just literally took all the Hispanic people. Oh, do you speak English? Yes or no? Go off the train. I was like, oh Lord, I don't have money to get another train. So I keep my mouth shut, and they just thought I was American. So I was like, I passed for American for that day.
Absolutely, yeah. It's not a real issue here when it comes to Black women or Black people, and that was like a really big key difference. It's something I just never would have known, like unless I traveled to the UK or had some other exposure.
Yeah, man, it's tricky, man. Immigration's tricky for brown people, I tell you. Even when you get invited to come to the UK, because Britain with part of the British Empire, and they had like colonies like in the Caribbean and Asia and stuff like that. And, you know, my grandparents were asked to come here to build up Britain after the World War II. And then they want to deport people back, like the descendants. So they call it the people from the Windrush generation. So from like the 1950s onwards to the 1980s was it like generations of people from the Commonwealth, what they call the British Empire, to come over, build up Britain, and we build it up. And like, we don't have paperwork for you. Go back. And we're like, what? We set our lives here. People got grandchildren. You ask them to go back to where? So, you know, Britain, everyone thinks like it's Hugh Grant. Everyone's drinking tea and living their best life and Mary Poppins. And it's not like that. Britain can be ugly at times. So, yeah. On a positive note, we got creativity to get through these, hurdles, especially as Black people. We just have to make it work. Just got to make it work somehow.
I think that's why Black people are so amazing no matter where you go, is because we face all these obstacles, but it brings us together culturally, and it brings us together across, boundaries, across international boundaries. And I think we set an example to the world in terms of how, like, even when you face these obstacles, when your people face these obstacles, it's like through camaraderie and through connection that you can overcome them, and your culture ends up stronger as a result, right? So
I understand that, but how do we preserve that wealth and cultural wealth? Because I feel like every time when it gets to a certain level, it just gets diluted,
Yeah, I mean, I think a part of it is like remembering. You have to remember the people that you came from, right? You have to remember the people. You have to remember the places that you came from. When the wealth is accumulated, it can't just be exported, right, to another place. It has to be focused on the people who need it the most within the community, right? And if we can do that, then we can continue to elevate everyone. But then when people get elevated, the money circulates back to the people who need it the most, and then they become elevated, and there's more elevation that way. But if we continue to just export the wealth with none of it recirculating back into the community, then people get wealthy, but it doesn't really help the culture at all, right? It doesn't help all of us grow together. And I think at the end of the day, it's a focus on community versus individualism. And as Westerners and as Americans, and maybe even over the UK, you might feel some of this is like there's a big focus on individualism and not the collective. And I think we need to get back to that.
Absolutely. Okay. So having all said this, right? Money makes the world go round. So how do you make sure you get your coins to sustain this creativity? How do you progress and make sure that you are doing what you're supposed to do at a high level?
It's a great question. So I went to school for entrepreneurship and strategy in Baltimore City. There was a program where we all had to make $10,000 on top of our academic program.
What? Explain this concept. You pay to go to school and they're telling you to make more. Okay, explain.
Yeah, you can go to school and they will tell you to make money, but it's not a program that is often found within the States. So that's one of the reasons why I moved to Baltimore. And I was like, I like the idea of building my own stuff. So there's this program called the eFellows program where you are tasked to make $10,000 in revenue on top of your studies, right? So you still have to make sure you do all your gen eds and your academic program. And then there, I wanted to build an art venue, right? Of course, being an artist. I found so many different hurdles doing that. I wasn't able to do it. It was my first failure when it comes to business. And one of the things they teach you in entrepreneurship school is that, you build from your failures. They actually encourage you to fail fast, right? And that way you learn and then you adapt and, eventually you succeed, right? So eventually what I did was I realized that I actually started liking finance a little bit. I was like, I'm taking these finance classes, I'm doing really well in it. I'm starting to understand Excel a lot better. Maybe I can build a business around this. And I met some really great leaders in the community through networking. And I started learning how to analyze financial data, which is a super fun and exciting topic.
Very okay.
So I built my own business helping entrepreneurs in Baltimore understand their financial position and help them to improve it through consulting. And this is how I started to make some money, but more importantly, learn skills that were able to sustain me during that period of time. And now I've been able to use those skills and put that work towards nonprofit companies who we build programming all over the world for youth to learn new job skills and to build businesses of their own. And I work as a cost pricing manager, building budgets. We just did $300 million in budgets last week, actually, this week that just passed. And this is how I sustain myself and my career as an artist. And this is how I also invest in myself, invest in my career as well, to expand it, right? Expand my capabilities.
Okay, let's be honest, because sometimes we don't have rich parents, so you have to learn to survive. And how do you make the $10,000 anyway?
So I made the $10,000 through my work with entrepreneurs in the community. So I ended up connecting with a Black-owned company, a Black-owned tech company in Baltimore City, and he already had so many connections that I didn't even really need to do much at that point. Just do the work, really. So he was, instead of me trying to figure out how to who's the next entrepreneur I'm going to work with, instead of me trying to do that that activity, he was able to take over that whole lead generation process, and then I just needed to fulfill our orders. So it became very easy. It actually became quite easy to make the $10,000 after partnering with him.
Understood. Wow. When you have to make money, you just got to find it. So I feel like with entrepreneurship, it's like you're always problem solving, and that is what you have to do. So yes, you know how to get that money. See, this is a great tip for everybody on this podcast who's listening, to think like there's more than one way to make money. You got to find your own way. You got to create your own reality. You got to create your own vision and protect it at all costs, because someone will say to you, just get a job. You're like, yeah, I understand, but there's more to life than just getting a job. You have to create different ways and pathways. So yeah, so thank you for sharing that experience. That's
of course. And one little blurb about that is like, I was the kind of artist who was like, I don't want to do anything but my art. So and I know a lot of artists feel that way, but I would encourage you to maybe expand your viewpoint a little bit, get creative. We are creatives at the end of the day. That is a very, very strong skill. It's a very strong part of your personality. So even when it comes to making money, you can get creative about how you do it, and do it in a way that still guards your time and sense of sanity and sense of self, to make sure that you can still invest in your art.
So using all your skills, how do one make money from beats? Because I feel like some people make really good money from beats. How do people make money from the beats life?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple sides to it. Like, you can focus on just making beats for artists individually, right? And some people get really lucky with that. They might make a beat and a major artist loves it, like someone like a Drake or Moneybagg Yo or something. And now all of a sudden, lots of people are hitting you up for your beats because major artists use some of your music, right? That's one way to get paid. One way to get paid is to work with local artists in the community. It's a little bit more difficult because local artists usually don't have as much money, and your ability to sort of predict when money is going to come in and come out might be a little bit more difficult with working with local artists. They call it cash flow, right? It might be harder to predict your cash flow working with local artists. I think the one of the most sustainable ways really to make money as a producer is through commercial work. So big companies that like to pay for beats. I'll give you an example. When Pusha T was 20 years old, he made the jingle for McDonald's.
I'm loving it, innit? I'm loving it.
Yeah, exactly. 20 years old. And that was a $500,000 check. Unfortunately, he probably should have got royalties with that. He'd be probably making a lot more money than the $500,000. But that just goes to show you that you can work with a major brand and get paid a large sum. Yeah, exactly. Get that money.
Okay, brands. Okay, McDonald's. I see you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the great thing about the commercial work is that they're always open for business. With local artists, sometimes artists find a producer that they really love, right? And they only work with that producer. So your chances of actually getting new artists might be difficult depending on the relationship between artists and producers prior to you joining the market, right? but with commercial work, they're always looking for music, always. You know what I mean? I mean, they just did like $6 billion in revenue off of hip hop alone for commercial work. Yeah.
Okay. So how does one just say, "Hey, McDonald's"? Obviously, you gotta pay your dues. You gotta show what work you do, your portfolio. So where does producer? Sorry, I'm asking very basic because I'm not the producer life.
No, I love it. It's so great.
So where do people put it on, like Mixcloud or SoundCloud? Like, where do people? How do you showcase your talent so it attracts the people you want in your life?
BeatStars is like a big one for a lot of producers nowadays. SoundCloud used to be like the major platform, and it's still a useful platform. But I think most artists use BeatStars nowadays. But also, I would always say like the direct, be creative. You know what I mean? These platforms get saturated with people, right? And it becomes difficult to stand out with new platforms at times. So get creative. Find the person in charge of production or marketing for a certain company, and you reach out to them directly, right? I still think that direct communication is the best way to go about getting your music into people's hands. And you just have to do a little bit more research than just uploading stuff on BeatStars or uploading stuff on SoundCloud. You have to, put in a couple hours of work to be able to find the right people. But once you find the right people, you can make a direct connection with them. And the likelihood that somebody's going to click your link from an email or direct email, a personalized email, I think is a little higher than someone being able to find you in the sea of producers on BeatStars on SoundCloud.
Okay. Understood. All right. And I feel like I might go on my little iPhone, make a little. I'm just joking. Make a little beat. Something like, I'm like, come on, McDonald's, give me my money.
I've heard people make incredible beats on their phone, and it makes me wildly, insanely jealous sometimes. I'll hear a beat, and I'm like, how did he make this? And they're like, yeah, he makes all these beats on his phone. Like,
all these apps, right? All these apps. Okay, cool. So we talked about being a producer. We talked about you rapping. What about you performing as well, or touring? Are you doing that, or have you thought about it?
Yeah. So, I've done some open mic performances, and we've done some performances. I'm also a part of a rap collective called Get What You Give, WUG, Get What You Give. And it's filled with amazing talented artists, producers, where we all produce ourselves. We all, rap ourselves. So we did an amazing show over at a venue called Only Vibes in DC, PG County, that area. And that was amazing. Like, the energy there was incredible. And so what we're doing is we're setting up those performances for the next year. And we're hoping to get some national and international showtime, I guess. So, and then as for me personally as DZI, I perform mostly in Baltimore City. I like being able to perform at the venues here because a lot of times they're Black owned, and I get to support my community directly, and also bring other folks to these venues, right, so they can get more exposure. And my performance style is very much, I would say, a little crazy. I like to put it all on the line when I perform. You know what I mean? I'm not a very reserved person when I perform. I might go shirtless or something like that.
Just like that.
Yeah. You'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm that kind of person. Like, I might be all over the floor or something, like I like to get in the crowd's face, you know what I mean? I'm not afraid of the crowd. I like to be on the level of the people who are, watching me perform. So I'm very much a dynamic, engaged, energetic performer. And I think that all my friends kind of note that about my style. Sometimes they're like, you got to figure out how to rein that in a little bit, man, because we're trying to get camera shots. We can't even locate
you need to get the money shots.
I'm all over the place. So I love being a dynamic, engaged, energetic performer. I like being like face to face with my crowd. I don't like the idea of being on a stage and my crowd's down here. I like being like with them, if that makes sense.
I hear you need to connect. Mm-hmm. Okay. But as an artist in whatever medium, what about your visuals? So how do you think about your creative direction and visuals? What is the process for that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So within our collective, our hip hop collective, we have folks who focus on like videography, and they're rappers too, and they're producers as well. But they have that videography talent, and we definitely tap them. We actually just did a music video yesterday for a song that I'm working on, a new single that I'm working on. And when it comes to the creative direction of it, I have a lot of creative ideas myself, but I like to bounce ideas off of like my friends within our collective, and kind of get ideas from them. And we all bring it together. Generally, what I like to do is do like a board, or like a video board where we can map out the scenes. And then, we get the things that we need to get for the scene: props, outfits, I don't know, lights, fog machines, that whole kind of thing. And then we just bring it together and see what works. And the great thing about having a collective is that you start to pull resources together. You start to, hey, I know this great videographer, I know this great editor. And then all of a sudden it becomes a lot easier to find the people that we need to get the job done. And it's been super exciting, to be honest with you, to be able to see some of the ideas that I have in my mind, like make it to a video. And the one video that I have out now is actually a song called Connect. You mentioned connection when I was talking about my style of performance. So maybe it's apt that it's called Connect. And we did a video right here in Baltimore City, some of my favorite locations. So please check that out on YouTube. I like the idea of bringing my thoughts and ideas and experience as a Black American to my music, and being able to share my pain, my love, my joy, and my vision with the world in that way.
Understood. So when I'm listening to you, it just seems like you have a really good creative network. So how did you build it? How did you build your creative network?
Yeah, to be honest with you, it's through some of it's through just being a musician for such a long time. I've had friends who are engineers, friends who are producers, through just going to shows, meeting new people. It's been, I've been a musician 12 years now of my life. So there's been a lot of connection made just naturally through exposure. And then I think through, like really getting a group of motivated people together takes things a lot longer than they would go, or than it would take if you were trying to do it yourself. So I think through that whole process of like connecting with other folks in the music scene who are very motivated, it's really helped. And in terms of where to find me, you can find me on all platforms: DZI, Dizzy. I'm on Spotify. I know I like to send people to Spotify when I can. I think that's a platform that I enjoy the most. You can check out my EP Heat Rock there, and I'll be coming up with a new single pretty soon. It'll be there as well.
Okay, understood. So I was going to ask, before we get into like knowing all those deets, what was the best thing someone said about your music, or the best testimonial?
Someone said about my music that that I'm bringing all these elements that anybody from any walk of life could enjoy, right? One of the best comments someone who said about my music was that, like, they were like, yeah, I feel like somebody like in the trap would love your music, but also feel like a college kid would love your music too. You know what I mean? That you could connect with people from all these different like walks of life. And honestly, it's been very intentional on our part to do so when it comes to rap, especially. Like, I never wanted to make music that was just like so like hood or gangster that like other people can relate to it, but I also didn't want to make some shit that was so soft that like folks in the streets couldn't like listen to it and understand it. And it really does reflect my I would say my network and my group of friends. Like, I have friends who, they're about that life. They're in the street, you know what I mean? And there's nothing I can say or anybody else can say that's gonna change that. But I also have friends in, who have doctorate degrees, who have traveled the entire world, and I have friends who've only traveled a couple blocks, around the neighborhood. So, and I love all of them the same. So when I make music, I think about them. You know what I mean? I think about like if they were to listen to it, what they would want to hear, and I also think about what my other friends would want to hear as well. So I try to encapsulate all of that into one song each time I make music.
Understood. That's so really good to hear that you can connect with people. I think it's such a powerful thing when you can get people to just like, yeah, I identify, I mess with you. You know what I mean?
And lately, and I'll say like very recently, I've been thinking a lot about women.
Okay.
Like a lot of music can be very like.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're breaking up.
No, Can you hear me? Can you hear or see me? Oh gosh. Oh no. The internet gods. Come on, internet. Can you hear me now? I'm here.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yay.
I'm
You
here.
was
Can you hear me?
talking about
No.
how much you was thinking about women, and then I laughed.
I've been thinking about women a lot because I realized that a lot of rap music can be a little bit like testosterone fueled, I guess. Um, and I've been thinking about like what women want to hear, like what makes them want to move, what kind of topics they like to like listen to, especially because we have women in our collective. And we noticed that like sometimes when we're making music, and she's like, it's all right. Like I vibe with it, but like I don't know if I would dance to this kind of thing. And I'm like, like what connects with women? Like I'm making music from a male perspective, and I can't really change that, but I can incorporate other perspectives. I can incorporate other folks and think about other folks when I'm producing. And lately it's been super helpful because it's made my beats better, it's made my topics better. Um, and I really feel like there's more of a connection with women in my recent music. And it just makes me happy because it's like, even when I said I have friends here and I have friends here and I like to make music like connect with them, those friends are men a lot of times, you know what I mean? And a lot of rap music focuses on the male perspective and it's from men, right? And by men a lot of times. Now it's changing quite a bit now. There's a lot of really talented female artists who are breaking through the scene and doing amazing things in the rap scene. But I think historically it's been very male-centered, male-centric. So I've been trying to focus more on the perspective of ladies, but not even just the perspective of ladies, but the sounds that a lot of ladies like to hear, the rhythms that a lot of ladies that get ladies like moving and dancing, and that's been super transformative. So.
Understood. Okay. So I think you said it before, but if you want to say again, how can we find you? How can we find you? Find your everything. Yeah.
DZI on 1,000 on all platforms. That's DZION 1000 all platforms. If you look me up, DZI on Spotify, you should be able to find me pretty easily. My last EP that I just made is called Heat Rock. And if you type that on Spotify, you actually pop right up. And I hope y'all enjoy. We've been working super hard on it. And the EP is great because it's me, but it's also all of my friends in the collective. They're all featured on the EP. So you'll get to know not just me, but everybody within Get What You Give or GWUG if you listen to that EP. And I'm sure it'll be very delightful for you.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy, DZI, that you're here to share all of your knowledge and authenticity with the Black Creative Handbook tribe. So
yes.
Thank you so much. This is the end. And to everybody, we will speak soon.